Hello BookTube and welcome to Weekly Reads. I've had a pretty good reading week, so let's get started. The first book I read, and that I cannot talk about, is Square Haunting by Francesca Wade. This is a group biography of five writers: H.D., Dorothy L. Sayers, Jane Harrison, Eileen Power, and Virginia Woolf, who lived in Mecklenburg Square, London, between 1970, 1918, and 1940. And as it is for the BookTube Prize, I can only say I've read it, and I will talk more about this book, along with all the other books I've read for this round of the BookTube Prize, when the octofinal results are announced at the end of this month or beginning of April, depending on how prompt the other responses from the other judges come, or results from the other judges come in. Last year we were pretty good at getting the results in quite quickly, and usually results came out at the end of the month, but it could be into the beginning of the next round. Who knows? Okay. So, of the books I can talk about, the first one is The Body in the Library. This is this month's Agatha Christie novel. It's a planted sad cypress, and I read it for a readathon, partially March Mystery Madness, but also Steve Donahue and David Murphy are doing a readathon or read-along of several classic works of mystery fiction or detective fiction, and for this week it was The Body in the Library, which is the second Miss Marple novel. I would say it's the best of the Miss Marple novels. Not my personal favorite. That would be A Pocket Full of Rye. But anyway, so The Body in the Library opens with Dolly Bantry dreaming. And as she's dreaming, she's also aware of Gossington Hall, her manor house, coming to life. The servants are opening rooms, they're doing their morning routines. One maid is bringing the tea tray for her and her husband's morning tea. Soon she will come into the room and open the curtains. But on this day, the maid announces in a flushed way that there's a body in the library. And scarcely believing it, she sends her husband, the colonel, down to make sure what's going on. And sure enough, there's a body in the library of a young woman of some glamour who's also rather shabby. And fortunately for the Bantrys, one of Dolly's best friends is Miss Marple, the elderly spinster who makes a habit of solving mysteries. So this is the third or fourth time I've read The Body in the Library, and I quite loved it. It really does improve with each reading, and particularly noticing other things beyond the problem of whodunit. So in this reading, I quite noticed the sort of the character development of how Miss Marple, or not Miss Marple, Agatha Christie sort of develops the characters of like Colonel Bantry and Basil Blake, of the supporting police characters, of Miss Marple herself, who is far more compassionate in this. Well, I actually would argue that Miss Marple wasn't really all that unpleasant in Murder at the Vicarage. That was mostly the other elderly spinsters of St. Mary Mead. And Miss Marple was just tarred with their brush. Miss Marple's always been, I think, rather compassionate. Um, but like also some of the other characters, Jefferson Conway and his family. So quite enjoyed that. I also really enjoyed, as I want to do, on a second and third reread of the Miss Marple novels, of how the mystery is constructed, how the solution is constructed, how the trap is set and sprung. And I mean, of course, in the Miss Marple novels, oftentimes her solutions are proven through a trap. She's not really. Her deductions are generated. She kind of comes to her deductions using parallels, drawing comparisons with the present situation to what she's experienced in the past. And very often she is, or almost always she is right. But she doesn't have hard physical evidence. She only has her sort of how she works it out. So in order to prove her case, she has to set a trap for the criminals to, or criminal, depending on the novel, to sort of prove her case, because police have them for something else, or sometimes there are other circumstances. But in most of the Miss Marple novels, there's a trap involved. So quite enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to David and Steve's videos on Sunday discussing Body in the Library, and also hopefully Steve Donahue will have an Agatha Christie starter kit like he did with Sherlock Holmes last week. Whew. That book was a workout. The next book is going to be even more of a workout holding up, because this one's 800 pages. So the second book I can talk about this week that I read is The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. This is an epic fantasy in which Western style dragons are malevolent and are led by a malevolent super dragon who wishes to destroy the world. He is opposed by pretty much the humans of the world, and also Eastern style dragons who are far more benevolent and have a partnership with the various human kingdoms on the eastern side of the world. Even though the western side of the world paints all dragons as malevolent. Anyway, so this book came out in 2019, and I read it shortly after it came out in either March or April, and I didn't quite get on with it. I'm going to go ahead and set this aside because it is quite heavy and my arm's getting tired. So I read it and I bailed on it rather early. The opening chapters, the first chapter, has an opening scene that enrages me. It involves a number of characters acting stupid because the plot needs them to act stupid. I mean, of course, it's still relatively early. They could be that stupid as characters, but they're not. I mean, the characters as they develop would not be that stupid to do what they do in the first chapter. So that set me off, and then the next few chapters are equally rough and also kind of pissed me off. So I bailed when I first attempted to read it, and I wanted to give and have another go at it. So I took that opportunity this week for March of the Mammoth, and those opening chapters still piss me off. And for the most part, the book's not much better. I mean, I'm quite happy I managed to read beyond the bail point and actually finished it. But I didn't really like it. I mean, there are really good parts of the novel. The only problem is that there's so much wrong. The book could have been shorter by 300-400 pages. Yeah. And I think too much focus is given on sort of the necessary sort of uniting the world against the epic threat than really paying attention to this looming epic threat that's threatening the world. I mean, and that's a staple of epic fantasies. Usually there was a looming epic threat, rising Dark Lord, returning Dark Lord, whatever. And the nations of the world, the peoples of the world are divided. They're fighting amongst themselves, or for whatever reason, they've been corrupted, or they're ebbing, or whatever. And eventually they have to sort of sort their problems out before they can fight the main threat. The problem with this approach is, if it's not wrapped up quickly, is that facing the epic threat, conquering the epic threat, is going to be a letdown. It's going to be anticlimactic because not enough attention was was given to the main threat, and I mean, too much attention was focused on the lead-up arcs. I mean, this is probably going to happen to A Song of Ice and Fire. Eventually, I mean, there were supposedly 2 books left, and the others still haven't really done much. But anyway, so that's one thing that annoyed me about the book. The characters also annoyed me quite a bit. Particularly Ede, the main protagonist of the 4 point of view characters. She is a highly competent fighter, incredibly skilled mage. She is snarky to the nth degree, and she really comes off as being very unlikable. I mean, I don't know necessarily if you could call her a Mary Sue. I mean, she does have certain elements of being a Mary Sue, in the sense that her character doesn't really face all that much in the way of a threat of reversals of character development, and in a way disappointing, and really makes her a bit unlikable. I did quite like Tane, the character, and also Archaloth, or just Loth. I thought both of them were quite strong, and really the strongest of the 4, or more enjoyable of the 4. And I wasn't particularly fond of Nicholas Roos, who is an exile, generally because he's rather loathsome, and I think an attempt at, I don't know, it's just, I guess, I mean, in a way he was meant to be sort of an antagonist point of view without necessarily being one, but all he really did was, yeah, he was just annoying. But anyway, so yeah. I mean, for the most part, I really didn't like Priory of the Orange Tree. I thought there were some really good bits. Some of the revelations I thought were quite good when everybody finally got their acts together and united. I thought that was really good. I wish it had been expanded on. I wish the villains were a bit more menacing, a bit more active in the plot. So, yeah. And then also the romance. I liked it, but I think it maybe was a bit sudden, given how long the two characters have known each other. That this relationship would have either already started or would have worked better if they had just met, or if it had been different characters. But anyway, so yeah. Anywho, okay, so enough talking about Priory of the Orange Tree. What am I going to be reading next week? So for my next reading plans, I'm going to be reading the Conan stories by Robert E. Howard. I'm going to start with The Coming of Conan the Cimmerian, and then I will continue with The Conquering Sword of Conan, and finally wrapping up with The Bloody Crown of Conan, all by Robert E. Howard. If I have enough time after Conan, I'm pretty sure this will take me all of the coming week. I will probably have some new books starting next week. So anyway, book 2. What else have I been doing? So I haven't really watched anything. I know the past few weeks I've been talking about what I've been viewing. I haven't really watched anything on Netflix or Disney Plus or anything like that. There's a lot of booktube I wanted to get to. Steve Donnie had Q&A videos up. And there's also the Women's Prize reaction videos that are all quite long that I want to watch. So I've been watching mostly booktube. So my plans for next week are, hopefully on Monday I will finally have my long awaited, at least for me, I've been wanting to have this conversation for a while, of my relationship with general fiction. If you know, in late February I had the bright idea to read 4 works of general fiction. Lot by Brian Washington, Alamo House by Sarah Bird, The Namesake by Jhumpa Lahiri, and Swimming in the Dark by Tomasz Jadrowski, and Accepting Swimming in the Dark, which I didn't start on. I bailed on all 3 of the first 3 books. And we probably knew that was coming up, because I really don't have that much success with general fiction. I don't really get on with it all that well. But I want to really look at why. Why don't I get on with general fiction all that well? And why am I determined to keep trying even though I know I don't get on with it? So that's something I really want to have, and hopefully I will have it on Monday. That's one of my goals, is to do that. And then on Tuesday and Thursday I want to do some tag videos. There are quite a lot of tags that I want to do that I haven't gotten around to, so I'm going to focus on that. And then on Friday there will be weekly reads, where I will probably just be talking about Conan, and if I have any other books I will talk about them then too, as a bit of a surprise. I also yesterday got my first dose of COVID vaccine. So quite happy about that. I go back for my second dose April 1st, and my mom gets her dose or her vaccine next Monday, and she's taking the Johnson and Johnson, so she'll only have the one dose she has to take. So that's good. And I'll talk a bit about this next Friday if you're interested. So anyway, BookTube, I'm starting to ramble. So I will go ahead and sign off now, and I will see you next week. Hopefully I stick to it, a discussion video on general fiction. So until next week, BookTube, thank you, have a great weekend, and please stay safe.